Like, nonprofit work is not a joke. It is hard, and it is every day it's hard. And I think going back to the last question, being in the right nonprofit for you is the golden ticket.
You know, so you're saying you want to be a part of this, and not just out the strength of me.
You got to be a buy-in within yourself before you can buy into the community.
It's so fun to watch someone be able to see that there's a whole nother life exists that they didn't know about.
There are nonprofits that I admire their work, but I would not be good at it. And, you know, there are people that have come to us that are like, this isn't for me.
Because of how small and boutique we are, we have the ability to kind of come together when necessary to be able to plan the events that we want to plan.
But the biggest thing we did, game changer, is we developed core values.
You're asking these people to give to your time for free. And so being mindful of when you're scheduling meetings, how often you're scheduling meetings. Is it going to be virtual? Is it going to be in person?
I think the people we serve, though, are the reason we get up every day and the reason we keep going every day.
And you just help one. Just one. And you see their whole life change. You get addicted. You're like, I ain't going back now. And then you get pummeled, and people are stepping off and exiting, but you saw that one, and then you just want another one. Just one more, because you know that that person will affect someone else's life and someone else's life. So I think that's what keeps.
Good evening and welcome to NPO Lab series presented by Community Foundation of Greater Clemson. I am your host, Tora Fields, and I have the pleasure of talking to some game changers who are on the field doing the work in the nonprofit sector. I will allow them about 2 minutes, not 2 Baptist minutes, but 2 real minutes to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your organization and how you got involved, starting with you, Mr. Don Peppers.
Hello, my name is Don Peppers. I am the Executive Director of the Proverbs Mentoring Organization. About 20 years ago, I was a substitute teacher at Pendleton High School and encountered some young men who talked about being bored in the summer. And that was something I could relate to, because I was that same teenager in that small town needing some exposure, needing some community activity. And so came back 2 weeks later with the vision of starting Camp Proverbs as a 2-week summer camp to help the young men in the community. 18 years later, that became the Proverbs Mentoring Organization as our community services expanded. So we had a service for young ladies called Camp Essence. We now have a school called Proverbs Prep Academy and an after-school program called King's Academy. So we're 20 years in, still trying to figure things out, but we're committed to our mission.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of the Dream Center. We're located in Easley, South Carolina, but we serve the entire upstate. My husband and I founded the Dream Center 13 years ago, and really with the idea, what we thought we were going to do, of course, is not exactly what we ended up entirely doing, but we bought a former school, and we formed the nonprofit, and we have programs there that offer a hand up instead of a handout. We're all about encouraging, educating, empowering people. What we're most known for is we have a tiny house village on site called the Opportunity Village, where we have 21 tiny houses, and we house homeless women and children for a year. And it's been very, very successful. After they graduate, we basically have a holistic approach to help them become healthy. In every way. They get counseling and see a doctor and a dentist. It's a strict program while they're there, and then they graduate and move to transitional housing for a second year. We also have free classes at the Dream Center that we offer, and these classes are on budgeting and parenting and anger management, just anything you can think of. We have over 60 classes a month that are free, and when people come to the classes from the general public, they earn Dream Dollars. And they can spend those Dream Dollars on our campus for personal hygiene items or to wash clothes, things like that. Or they can shop in our 4 resale stores with Dream Dollars. So we're completely focused on a hand up instead of a handout. We do have crisis intervention, which is the only program there that's a handout. And that's for people coming in just in crisis, whether they're an addict or their house burned down or they're in domestic violence. And we have staff there that sits down and problem solves and gets them help. But other than that, everything we do is a hand up. And it has been really a decade of learning how to help people effectively. And we're still learning, but how to help them long term for transformation that's going to last. And it's just taken a lot of making mistakes and fine-tuning and learning from it. And so that's pretty much what we have done.
That's amazing. My name is Justice Cox. I'm the executive director for Young Brothers Academy, which is a 501c mentoring organization in the upstate. It's a leadership development model for young men in middle and high school, focused on education, empowerment, and exposure. Really centered around the whole idea of being who you needed when you were younger. I guess I'm the young buck up here. We're 7 years in, still a baby, but it's amazing, what God has done with the program and how He's expanded, the nonprofit. And so I'm really here as a sponge as well to learn, from you guys as I sit up here.
That is really cool. You in Oconee yet? Are you in Oconee County yet?
That's it. Anderson, Greenville, and Spartanburg.
Okay. So that's awesome. I'm Stephanie. I'm with an organization called Ripple of One. It was founded back in 2011, and it was created for a very specific problem. And the problem of thousands of families who are stuck living on government assistance, church assistance, any kind of public assistance. And when I mean stuck, I think so many folks, and I mean, general community would perceive, okay, if you're living on government assistance, then you need to go get a job. That's not how it works. So I was taught, just like Chris was saying, I learned from the people that I had the opportunity to help. It started in Chicago. I was mentoring and helping abused women and children shelter, doing a goal-setting project. That's how it started for me. And then Phoenix at a homeless shelter, and then finally Seneca. And at Seneca, I ended up actually by default at DSS Family Services because 22 years ago, there was no safe harbor in Oconee County, and there was no homeless shelter in Oconee. So that's where I ended up. And I said, hey, you need this goal-setting project? I'd be happy to do it. I love it. It's so fun to watch someone be able to see that there's a whole nother life exists that they didn't know about. So from there, I learned from the folks that I was talking to and helping them goal set on another life was that if you make more money, then the government assistance is reduced at such a drastic amount that you actually make less. So if you're in that situation, you're a single parent, no support system, why would any of us do that? You're gonna make $800 less? I'll just stay where I'm at. And that's where we're at for thousands of people. I'm not saying there aren't people that are entitled and that want to stay on it for other reasons, but I will tell you, I think from the last 15 years that I would say 70% really would love a better life. So Ripple of One was born from that problem. We match families' savings up to $200 every month. It's a 2-year program. We walk alongside. We mentor. It's a mentorship program. In the transitional housing at the Dream Center, when they get to transitional housing, then they're ready for Ripple, because that's when we do the tough financial literacy of, look, we're going to create a spending plan, because if you don't tell your money what to do, it's going to tell you what to do. So that's where it was all created from that, but it's so much more about, health, walking with your mentor, you get $10. Anything that's incentivized, because to get off government assistance, there is no incentive. Just from that example I gave you. So that's all our program is mentorship plus incentives equals success. We have 128 adults and children that are completely off public assistance and are now coming back and helping others go through the process of becoming independent and keeping our dignity, because it feels really good, like Chris was saying, hand up versus hand out. And it sounds like everyone here is in that mentorship, walking alongside someone. So it's so interesting because I've had so many people tell me, do you know how it felt when I always had to take? You were higher than me. You were up here. So it makes us feel great. Here you go. But to the person that's the recipient, if we could come alongside and teach, it's just that, now they're in a power. They're in the place of power to help themselves. Okay, talked enough. That's what we do.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Adrienne Garner. I'm the Executive Director of Little John Community Center in Clemson. 35 years in the making of our program. Little John's Community Center started off with Club Edge. Club Edge was our after-school program. We had a total of 300 students in our after-school program. We started over at Little John, then we filtered over to Abel Baptist Church with 300 students. That came from Club Edge. Club Edge stands for Engaging Diversity, Gaining Experiences. Growing up, born and raised in Clemson, my grandfather, they had land and we built the community center there. I will say I had the resources through my parents, but leaving Clemson, going to college in Charlotte, North Carolina, just to see other people going through, working out in the community, I knew coming back home we needed something for our youth to do, and that's how Club Edge transitioned over to Little John. Little John was our main name after my grandfather, but Club Edge was our total get it together group. And with parents and family, now we service the whole family of Little John Community Center. We have 2 federal programs that are TRIO. People are very familiar with TRIO. We have Upward Bound, Talent Search, Student Support Services, McNear. But Little John, we have EOC, Educational Opportunity Center, and we have ETS, Educational Talent Search, where we go into the schools, work with students with SAT, ACT, college tours, everyday life. We provide those 2 services. And then the EOC, Educational Opportunity, we provide working with adults. We just graduated one a couple years ago. She was 78. She got her GED. We're very proud of that lady that got her GED in the community. But those are things that we're doing now. Now we have another program that is called Teen Companion. Teen Companion is a Medicaid program through the South Carolina Department of Human Services. Teen Companion is MAPS, Medicaid Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention Program. It gives our students an opportunity to share abstinence. We're in the school district of Anderson County, Oconee County, Pickens County. I'm very happy. My county where I grew up in. And just working with the teachers, working with the students, working with the parents, just to let them know they have a safe place to be. Then we do food. This is my partner next to me, but food is, I was sharing with the ladies, food is my passion. That's my quiet place where I can fix in the kitchen at Little John. I do have a chef there, but Chef Garner do a little bit. I was sharing with them, we will be feeding 800 plates coming Thanksgiving, and I will cook all the food. But that's my ministry for me. God has given me that. That's my peace. That's my quiet. I go in there, fix the food. They come in and prepare to serve. But like I said, I've done this for 35 years, but you have to be true to what you do. People say, oh, I want to get in nonprofit. It's a lot of money. It's not money, boo. It's a passion, and I've been consistent for 35 years, and we have elevated ourselves. But I love what I do, and I love working with my other nonprofits.
Thank you. I'm Karen Carter, and I'm the Executive Director of Clemson Community Care, and we are an emergency aid agency. We provide Before you can go to Opportunity Village or Ripple of One or Club Edge or any of those programs, we stabilize you. If you don't have food or you don't have shelter over your head, you don't have power in your home, we work with families and individuals in those situations to get you to a more stable situation where you can move forward. Before you can systemically change anything, you have to stop the bleeding, basically, and that's what we try to do. We were formed 36 years ago, so we're just a little bit older. Not only am I the oldest, our organization is the oldest. So we have been working in the community for 36 years. Food, shelter, and utilities are our mission, and that's what we do with residents of Clemson Central and Pendleton. So we cover a little bit of Pickens County and a little bit of Anderson County, and we just really do see people in a lot of the situations that everyone has talked about. Jobs that you don't make enough, but if you make more, your benefits are cut, and those kinds of things. We see a lot of that. Like Stephanie mentioned, very few people don't want to work. It's just sometimes there are so many barriers to doing that, such as childcare and transportation and different things. So we really do try to stabilize people, and then the people that can fit another program, we try to refer to those programs so they can, for a long, sustainable period, move forward.
So all of that to say, it sounds like I am not doing enough in my community. You all are awesome and you're doing the great work. So to start off the conversation, I think it's very important that we start, go back to the basics. There's so many individuals who aspire to start nonprofit organizations and they don't necessarily know where to start. They don't know the questions to ask Google or the questions to ask YouTube. So from you all, the experience that you have, what are the 3 most important things for someone starting a nonprofit to have and or do? Anyone want to start? Yeah.
Paperwork. I'm a believer. I tell people when they come see me, I want to start a nonprofit. Get you a CPA. Get your financials in order first before you attempt to go out to look for monies. And when you start looking for monies, you got to be a buy-in within yourself before you can buy into the community. The community have to see that you're going to be a buy-in before you can apply for any types of federal or state or foundation monies. Number 1, get a CPA. Number 2, make sure you do your research. Read, attend conferences, go ask questions, stay grounded in whatever you want to do as a nonprofit, sporting, any type church, any type of nonprofit. Know your homework before you go into it. Thirdly, God, pray about it. You got to pray to make sure this is what you want, not to do it for the monies. You can't do this for monies. I can't say this enough. Someone said the other day about Karen, when we all leave, these new directors are going to be wanting more money. I said, I think so. I said, these new directors are going to be like us, Karen. But you got to have the joy first, honestly. But first of all, find you a CPA to go through the ropes with you. And then I'm going to go 4th, then find you a board. Find you a nonprofit board that's going to not listen to you, but you're going to listen to them.
I have one more. That was perfectly said. The only thing I can add is, so let's pretend you already have a job. Mm-hmm. I'm just pretending this person, or maybe your partner has a job. Either way, I would suggest that you volunteer at that passion an hour a week. Figure out, already do it, be doing it. Before you go into starting it, which is what she's saying. Those are all the things you're going to need if you start it. But what about just doing it? Even if it's an hour a week, then you get to see, okay, this is where it's really at. This is how I do it.
I would add, from an initial standpoint, for me personally, I had no desire of starting a nonprofit. I was searching, for somebody to connect with. So that'd be something I would suggest, see if somebody's already doing the work that you can partner with. We talk about collaboration a lot, but also we go, well, I want to start my own. A lot of times we're not, called to start our own, because as these leaders can attest, that's a whole nother calling within itself. But maybe, your calling is to plug in with somebody else. So great advice, but I would also start off by seeing what's out there and seeing what you can plug in first before starting your own.
I really love what you just said about that, because sometimes it's not always what you think. You think you're going to do this, or you think you should do this, and sometimes you have to step back and find out what the real need is. And what I would suggest is get a mentor. I have mentors now. I had mentors when we started, and I have mentored people who are starting nonprofits just because I want to be able to help them prevent some of the mistakes. But early on, one of the things that held me back was fear, because people don't want to take the next step to kind of move their feet forward out of fear. Like, what if this is a bad idea? What if this doesn't work? What if this fails? But if you're called, I feel like really in the nonprofit world, at least faith-based, you really have to be called to do it. It's not something that you would just choose, because it's not like you're going to make a lot of money. It's not like you're not going to work your tail off. I mean, like you're going to work really hard. You really need to feel like you're called to do it. And then if you're called, just do it without fear. I felt like I was paralyzed with fear for many years. When we built our tiny houses, my husband and I said, what if this is the worst idea? So we found out how tall you could build them and still be able to transport them. Because we said, okay, if we just build them to the height, like this is a really bad idea, we could sell them and transport them off of there and pretend like it never happened. And so I'm like, okay, good idea, let's do that. So to this day, I mean, these houses are built to whatever the height is that we could load these things up. And it was fear. And if I could go back and tell myself, if God called you to do it, then don't wait on don't be bargaining like, well, if you send this and if this happens, then I'll do it. And if you, well, yeah, no, it's not that short. But if he's called you, the provision will come. You just have to work hard, and don't let fear hold you back. Do what you can with what you have. And you don't have to have everything to start. Like Stephanie said, start with what you have. Can't say, if I have a big building, then I'll do it. If I have this, then I'll do it. No, go get alongside somebody doing it. Go do what you can with what you have, and God will give you the next provision, the next step. But step out of that fear. I'm not, as the years have gone by, he's replaced my fear and increased my faith. But it took me a long time. I was afraid for a long time. And now, if you're called, just do it. Because people are going to come alongside you, and they're going to help you. You don't even have to really be that qualified. Just say yes, and he'll send you the people.
I'll say that we've been 20 years in, but we were fearless because we didn't understand that growing takes a lot of growth. Adrian spoke about paperwork and all the different details from the federal standpoint, and I was terrified of that. I just wanted to mentor. But over the years, you realize that with your passion, that there's growth that's needed. And so for us, it was just, like I say, doing the small things of a nonprofit, developing a board, understanding the mission, and getting committed to it through the good, the bad, the ugly. And we have been committed to that. And so, but several things that you just said just encouraged me because I'm still trying to figure some of those steps out. And so thank you for the encouragement.
You guys didn't know you were going to go to church this evening too, did you? You're welcome. We talked a lot about, you all talked a lot about passion and mission. And then we got into purpose a little bit too, which I think they all go hand in hand. And everything is not always rainbows and ponies in the work that you all do. So how do you all stay passionate and keep your candle lit with so many barriers and so many hiccups that you experience, maybe it be state, local, or federal? How do you stay passionate when no victory is on the horizon, when it looks as if there's no victory on the horizon? Don't y'all go crying on me now.
That is a great question, and I think it ties into the last one. Like, nonprofit work is not a joke. It is hard, and it is every day. It's hard, and I think going back to the last question, being in the right nonprofit for you is the golden ticket. Because there are nonprofits that I admire their work, but I would not be good at it. And, you know, there are people that have come to us that are like, this isn't for me. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think the people we serve, though, are the reason we get up every day and the reason we keep going every day. I've said, because obviously I am the oldest one up here, that, you know, when I do not want to drive into the parking lot in the mornings, it might be time to move on, and I still want to drive into the parking lot every day. And so the first person that comes in and you're like, how are you? And they're like, I'm blessed. How are you? And I'm thinking, your power's going to be cut off at 5 o'clock. You know, and you're still saying that, then it causes me to kind of evaluate every day of, I really am, but I'm more blessed because I'm there. And I get to be with you every day. And I just love the people we serve. And I think being in the right nonprofit makes a difference.
I would say, too, that it goes back to the old adage, when you just help one, just one, and you see their whole life change, you get addicted. You're like, I ain't going back now. And then you get pummeled, and people are stepping off and exiting, but you saw that one, and then you just want another one, just one more, because you know that that person will affect someone else's life and someone else's life. So I think that's what keeps me going.
I know for me, it's how you understand that it's truly a calling. We're only in year 7, but I had a friend. We just celebrated our 7th year at our gala, and our host, he was like blown away. And you know, we've been doing this 7 years. I'm like, this is, you know, just what we do. And he asked me, he was like, "You're doing this for what?" And I've never thought about that at all. And in these 7 years, I never thought about that I could be doing something else. Quick context, all our positions are not paid. My position is not paid yet. And so we really are giving of our time, you know, for nothing. Well, I'm not going to say it's not a monetary reward. And I kind of look at it, you know, I have 2 little girls now. One is 3, and the youngest one is 1. And I'm not a guy for bodily fluids and diapers and all that. But when it's your own, you know, you don't even think about it. And it's your question. There's no question about it. You know, who's going to change this diaper, and you go clean it up. And I think it's kind of like the same with your seed, with your nonprofit. You know you're called when you're not even thinking about, you know, who's going to clean the mess up, and you're just going to keep pushing and keep working at it. So I'm sure they can attest. It's just what you do. And if those barriers, you know, stop you, then maybe it wasn't for you.
I would say this was easy for me to answer because we serve some difficult situations. I mean, the people that come live in our program for a year with their kids, you're with them day in and day out. The biggest thing I've been able to learn and grow through is that I'm not God, you know, and what I have to do is be obedient every day. My daily small acts of obedience lead to great moves of God. And I'm sorry, this is faith-based, our organization, so I can't really not speak about that. But it's just a matter of, you know, when you have somebody that finishes strong and is a victory, you're like, look what God did. You don't take the credit for it. You're like, go God. But then when somebody doesn't do well, you want to take all the credit for that, you know. You have to give God credit for all of it because it's not about me and I'm not in charge of the outcome. So the greatest lesson I learned is I show up every day and I honor I have faithful acts of obedience. I do the hard stuff, and it's not, the daily acts of obedience aren't fun. You know, those are nobody wants to do those. You do those every day, and you let God handle the outcome. And if somebody doesn't make it through your program or doesn't meet your expectation, it's not a reflection of you. You just have to give God's in charge of the outcome. You planted a seed. When you can do that, you can celebrate their time with you, even if it doesn't end the way you want it to, because it can be heart-wrenching when someone relapses or they lose their kid again, and they go back to an abusive situation, and you've poured into them and you've poured into them and you feel like you failed them. You didn't, because you're not that powerful. So I just have to say, you know, we had a situation just this week, and I'm like, I'm going to pray for this girl, but I'm not God. I'm not her savior, you know. So give yourself a break, you know, and don't think that it's a reflection of your lack of mentoring or saying the right words. It's not time.
Very good. Well, we talked a little bit too about funding. We know that nonprofit organizations still take some sort of money to keep it going and to support you all's mission. But how, and with that, I know that with certain grants, you have to meet certain requirements. You have to meet certain expectations. So how do you all measure the impact of your mission? Like, what metrics do you use to ensure that you are meeting your mission's impact? Does that make sense? How do you know that your mission is being met? How do you measure that?
So that's a great question, because ours was very difficult at first. Because when you're talking about mentoring, you know, you're talking about people, you know, and it's hard to quantify, you know, the growth you made with people. And, you know, so just complete transparency, we haven't applied for any major grants yet. We're now in a position to, thank God. But initially, you know, a lot of people were trying to get us to fit into a grant. And we decided we were just going to stick to, you know, who we were. And everybody would ask, you know, what are your metrics? What are you measuring it by? And I started going crazy. I was like, how are we going to show numbers to impact? Come in the room, you know, see these young men, you know, see how they started and see, you know, where they're at now. But what we decided to do is create our own metrics. And so this year, it was parent engagement was one of our biggest, and understanding that we give the child, you know, men right back to their parents when they get home, so their parents need some type of educational resources. We started a new program called Project Renew, where we were paying for mental counseling sessions for our young men as long as they were attending our sessions. And the other one was just committing to meet every other week, every second and fourth Saturday. And so we started with those three. So by the end of the year, it was like, did we do this? You know, did we meet with our parents? Did we offer services and stick with what we said we were going to do? So in our space, we created our own metrics. We look at grades and things like that as well, but at the same time, grades don't always tell the story of the work that we do.
Very good. Anyone else to answer that question?
One of the things that we didn't do early on is keep track of certain data that, I mean, I didn't know. You know, people would say, oh, well, how many did you serve, you know, that first year? Well, I don't know, a lot. So as we grew, we started thinking, okay, we need to keep up with a lot of information about the people who are coming in. And so now the biggest thing is, if you do write a grant, you get a grant, like send a written thank you note to that donor. Send them, like halfway through the year, send them a story, something that impacted. Don't take the money and run. You know, you've got to engage them in your work. At the end of the year, we do a summary of how many people we served, and all the data of what we did through the year and what we accomplished through the year, and we send it to them. And we send them notes through the year. Just build a relationship with those donors and do what you say you're going to do with it, and then make sure they know that, hey, I'm still here and I'm still doing the work, and communicate with them. And that's the biggest thing I have learned, is just keep showing your gratitude and keep showing them I used the money for exactly what I said I would.
Very good. Great answers, too. We talked to a little bit about the hardships, and everyone wants to hear the story. If anyone can think of one of the biggest challenges you have faced in your organization, and how did you overcome that? It's a lot of them. If you can think of the biggest one.
So just 2 years ago, I was the athletic director at Anderson Christian School, and I was very comfortable there. And we were doing the mentoring on a small scale, and we were relaunching the Proverbs mentoring model. And I was approached by the Restoration Project Foundation, which was a group that had gotten some federal money from Governor McMaster, and they wanted to start mentoring organizations as virtual charter schools. The superintendent was running on education reform, and so they were looking for mentoring programs to partner with. And so we were one of the first ones in South Carolina that they partnered with to start this. So we started the school with 5 students, still while I was at Anderson Christian School, and trying to do the school, so I was doing both. It paid me a really good salary. Honestly, I'd never been paid that much before. It had always been a labor of love. And so for 2 years, it paid me a really good salary, and it really helped to bless my family and give us some opportunity to grow as a family. But then here come the numbers and the metrics, and they want you to start playing games with lives. And just as Justice said, we didn't want to compromise our integrity and our mission for just numbers, by getting bodies in the classroom, by getting numbers by kids that we couldn't adequately serve. And so we lost our funding. I lost that salary. But we didn't stop. And in the 2 years since we lost that funding, we've continued to grow our services. Young men have come our way, young ladies have come our way. And what I did is I pivoted. I took a supervisory role position at New Foundations, 3rd shift, Thursday through Sunday night. I have 4 children. My wife has been there every step of the way. She's understood all the sacrifices. But that's what I was willing to do to make sure that, hey, as long as we stay committed to the mission, we're going to position ourselves for other opportunities. And so we've continued, we're 4 years in with the school, and we continue to do amazing things with the students. And I can't tell you about the metrics. I'm not good with that. Now with our new boards, we are assessing that better now. But I can tell you what Justice said. I know when you're in the room, if you come visit the room, you'll see the impact.
Our biggest challenge, when we first started, we had 0 money. We didn't have employees. So much like you, Justice, like I worked many years there for free, didn't have a salary or anything, and I was a volunteer. My husband liked to say he supported a missionary, and it was me. So that was hard. I mean, it was just hard and just building it, and nobody got paid. And then when we started adding 1 employee, we're like, whoa, okay, we got to pay this employee. It's just stressful. We don't get any government funding. We don't apply for government funding. We don't get state, federal, nothing. So that's not an easy thing to do. And so when we did start adding employees, we opened eventually 4 resale stores, and our resale stores provide 82% of our financial sustainability. But the biggest thing we did, game changer, is we developed core values. We have 6 core values, and every person we have hired, with our 4 stores, I think we have 90 employees now, but they have to know that we're going to follow these core values, and if you don't, you can't work with us. So, but the core values is really helpful because it helps everybody stay on track with each other and know what the expectation is. And so that really, really helped me a lot.
I actually think for us, one of the things, we have some of the same challenges that everyone has, but COVID was a huge challenge for us because we have our clients come to the building and we talk with them about their situation, and I'm sure everybody had to adjust for COVID, but for a food pantry, we operate with about 80 volunteers a week. Well, we had none for 17 months, 18 days, and something like that. And so we had no volunteers. So the work of 80 people, volunteer people, was down to our staff of 3 part-time and 1 full-time. And so that was a huge challenge to us to change our way of service. We started doing food like in a more drive-by situation, so to protect our families and us. So we adjusted that, but you still had to come in if you needed a bill paid because we have to have that conversation. So we had to really, really pivot a lot during that, and just every day was a new adventure of how we are going to best serve, because it was not in our thoughts at all to not, because as hard as COVID was on everybody, people in tough situations anyway made that really very difficult for them. So we just had to change our whole model of work, and that was really very challenging.
With us over at Little John, I think I'm that type of person. I love to play all the time. But having federal and state grants helped me accountable to the point where 21st century, if you say you're going to spend this money, you got to spend it where they say you're going to spend it. Federal money, if you're going to say salaries, you're going to be like, oh, well, somebody quit. I'm going to use it to buy or take the kids somewhere skating or bowling. It can't happen like that. It holds us over at Little John accountable for grants. And plus, with federal grants, it gives us the statistics that we need to write other grants, because we put things in a system that is called bloomings, and different systems for the Fed government and for 21st century food grant, summer feeding grant, the CACFP grant. It holds us accountable, and I need it. I need all account. I tell anybody I'm not there yet. God still got me. I'm still that one that I'm not perfect. But with federal grants, state grants, and foundation, when you need your report, I have the best program manager. You will get it. Now, you had to wait on me. I don't know. I tell anybody now, I'm going to be guilty. I'm on camera. I go to jail. I don't go to jail for taking money, but I go to jail because I don't forgot to write your report. But federal and state grants will hold us accountable over at Little John Community Center, and I love it, because at the end of the day, we have statistics, data that will show we have 1,000 people. We have 500 kids. We fed this many students. But it's hard for a nonprofit, and I'm gonna be honest, I've said this over at Chambers, it's hard for African American, I don't consider myself an African American program because I serve everybody, but the face of Little John, everyone always see Adrian. I'm an African American black lady, but that's not true. We serve every culture over there. But it's hard for me to say, I'm doing a fundraiser and I need to raise $100,000. And I need money too. Who's going to give it to me? They won't give it. Now, it may be easier for Karen to have a, okay. Yeah, you can get it. She can have an event where people will give and give and give. But it's hard for me to get a fundraiser started for Little John. And I don't receive monies from donors. Individually, because I say once the grant in, y'all have a great day. You have 5 years with me, guaranteed 5 years. After 5 years, you may have transition. I'm gonna give you that 4th year. We're gonna write it again. It's not guaranteed, but I feel better that way, instead of getting on the news and say I need to pay for salaries. Can y'all please help me? I can't. Me personally, I can't do that, but there's some people that have the talent and can receive monies, $15,000, $100,000. That's not Adrian. I tell people, I call my dad, I need to borrow some money. Can we pay these people? That's my fundraiser. My parents have always been my fundraiser. Not that they're wealthy, but my father, someone put out there, when I used to call my dad in college, I would say, hey, Dad, I was just checking on you. He said, I ain't got no money for you today. But it's hard for us to have a fundraiser, but I will say accountability for me is grants. Not the orange juice.
Very good. Well, you all seem to have some sort of a relationship with each other across the panel, but tell us a little bit about the importance of collaborating with other nonprofit or for-profit organizations, and how that has impacted your organization, hopefully for the better.
I think it can't work unless you collaborate. And I think that there's, in a human's life from 0 to whatever, whenever God calls you home, there's a gazillion different places in your journey. One organization cannot handle all of that. So unless we can all work together for all those places in the journey, that's what God created us to do. And I know, speaking personally from Ripple of One, we will not even go into an area unless there is another organization that we can say, hey, what you got going on here? Maybe we can compliment you, you can compliment us, and we will not go into a place and just be solo. It's just not gonna happen for multiple reasons. But I think that's what we're all here to do, is collaborate, and we all have something to give a human during that time in their life.
Going back to the gentleman beside you, he said, why create something? There's no need to create programs. You need to tap in. And I am a big believer of tapping into other programs, because we all need one thing: numbers. I'm a number person, and numbers are important. And why should we create other programs when, with the food program, she has her food program, let's work together. She has Ripple of One, she's doing parenting programs. It's easier for me to send my parents to her instead of me trying to hire someone and create a salary that I know I can't pay anyone and make false promises. It's easier for me to go around the table to say, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? Then we have transportation issues, but if we can eliminate transportation, we'll take you over to Dunn's program, everybody's program, and work with each other. But that's the key thing. We have to learn how to work with each other and visit your program and say, okay, Ripple of One is doing a great job. Let's connect with them. Dream Center. I appreciate the Dream Center. A couple weeks ago, we had a fair over there. I think it's for the community, but I think sometimes it's for us to connect together, to share when we go back into our community centers, to say, or our nonprofits, to when people come in, oh, I need housing. Oh, well, Ripple of One has this program, or I need food, Karen has this program. We can all connect by going to other people's programs. I think it's wonderful, because God put us on here for a purpose, not, like you said, create everything. We can't do it all. I look back over my life where I worked in Oconee County for 10 years, 15 years, and go to Little John, and I never got paid for 15 years. People thought I was getting a paycheck, but I never forget, Mayor Halfacre wrote a letter on my behalf, says she doesn't receive salary, she's just working. I mean, I enjoy what I do, but everyone looks on the outside and think you're receiving a salary. But you got to partner with people. It's important, partnership.
I think we all collaborate a lot and very well. I think it's also important for us to stay in our lane. I don't need to, I've got more than we can say grace over by doing food, shelter, and utilities. I don't need to do GED and financial stability and all those kinds of things, because I know people that do that better than we would. So we need to do food, emergency food, shelter, and utilities the best way that we can. We're very, very blessed, I think, in our area, because we have Clemson Community Care, who can do the emergency. We have Adrian, who does a wide variety of services. We have the Clemson Free Clinic, and they have the Samaritan Health in Easley, and Rose Clark, and all these medical care. We have the Clemson Child Development Center that takes ABC vouchers. We don't need to do any of that because it's there, and we have enough work without creating more for ourselves, and just collaboration really helps our workload, if nothing else. And it also creates our clients are served better when we know what's out there, and we can refer to other agencies and move them forward by doing that.
Anything to add? Very good. Well, I think we can agree that it's best to work smarter and not harder, and not reinvent the wheel. We talk about partnership and collaboration, but I think the biggest thing too is community involvement. So for those viewers who will go back and watch this, tell them how they can connect with you and your organization, and how they can maybe become a volunteer, or, well, I say volunteer because we don't have any funding to give them for a salary, right? How they can be involved with what you're doing within their community. Starting with you, Mr. Peppers.
So we have several needs for volunteers. First of all, from our school sector, transportation. Anyone who wants to help provide transportation for students. We don't have a lunch program, so maybe that's a conversation I need to have with someone on this panel. But we're still in the infancy stages. So lunches, we have churches that provide some lunches for our students, but that's a need. Also volunteers, even if you want to come in and tutor. There's a great need for tutors. Several of our parents can't afford tutoring. And so there are tutors out there that want to volunteer, and so that's a great need. Then our summer programs, just having bodies that want to encourage the students that we serve.
And how can we find you on the World Wide Web?
www.proverbsmentoring.org, and then we're on all our social media platforms under Proverbs Mentoring.
There's a lot of volunteer opportunities at the Dream Center. So many volunteers that we rely on. We have teaching classes, being a mentor, childcare, our stores. It's just a lot of opportunity. We have a volunteer orientation twice a month, and you can go on our website and sign up to come to that, and we give you a tour of the Dream Center, the Opportunity Village. We tell you about all the volunteer opportunities, and even if you don't want to volunteer, you can come to that just to learn about what we do and who to send to us if they need help. But you can go to our website. It's dreamcenterpc.org, and check out how to come see. You have to go to a volunteer orientation before you can volunteer, so that's a good first step.
Cut the check. But nah, seriously, we can't, I know, so starting out at a nonprofit, probably the first 5 years, I didn't ask for a dime, from my community, because I didn't want people to think that we were just doing it for money. But as you get into the work, long story short, I remember we took the boys bowling, and we had a sign up, and of course more kids came and they signed up, and so I ended up coming like $300 out of pocket, and my wife was like, "That's it." She was like, she's, and what was I gonna say? My wife was like, "That's it." And so from that moment on, I started to, solicit funds. But it's real. I know a lot of people up here are humble, but at the same time, money is needed to do this work. So you can make checks payable to Young Brother Camera, Young Brothers Academy, Young Brothers Academy. Also the website, youngbrothersacademy.org. We're on Facebook, Instagram as well, Young Brothers Academy. There are plenty of ways to volunteer. And it starts with just being in the room. We do work with young men. So if any men just want to come be a part of the session, it's a great time. It's definitely spirit-filled and spirit-led. God moves every time within the discussions. So if you want to be in the room, we do have opportunities for ladies as well. We have a session called Talk to 'em, Sis, where the young men get to hear from women and their perspective on the issues that we're talking about. So cut the check at Young Brothers Academy.
Shameless plug. Good for you. Stephanie?
I love it. We are in desperate need currently of mentors and coaches. I say financial coach. That is just a fancy schmancy word with what you got coming in and what you got going out. That is it. You do not need financial anything to be part of that. Mostly, we're looking for females for the mentoring. We do have a few males coming through, but they're all very stubborn when they come in. They don't want to, they feel prideful about getting help, but we are getting some more dads in, which is very encouraging. And so a mentor, it's like, you know what, Megan, few hours a month. No, you do life, but it's a couple hours a week. But a financial coach, that's a few hours a month. And you're working on a team. You're watching someone just completely change their whole mentality. It's just the coolest thing to be a part of that team. So we are looking for those people. And that is rippleof1.org. You can go in and sign up for an orientation. Our recruiter happens to be in the audience right now, and she's giving me the eye. Better make this happen. So anyway, rippleof1.org, sign up for orientation. Megan, who's actually a graduate of the program, and she does the orientation, so it's great. Thank you.
Okay, volunteers. I love volunteers. I love Clemson students. I love the community, SWU, TCT, Tri-County Tech. Just to walk in and want to be a mentor. We have mentoring on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Each child is getting a one-on-one mentor and student. We need more grandparents. We need more churches involved, beta clubs. We're just needing anyone that wants to work with our community. We have senior bingo. We have a veterans breakfast that is coming up this Monday. We're always having events over at Little John, and all hands on deck is always needed. Just walk in. Miss Amy will make you welcome just to come in and, be a part of our family. You can reach us over at littlejohncommunitycenter.org. We're on all social media. I live right behind the community center. Just knock on my door. Anything that we could help you with, you could help us. And we do receive monies. And let me stop saying we do not receive monies. I don't solicit money, but someone just blessed us with donation the other day, and we're grateful for that. But it's not where Adrian is saying give. But Little John is always open for any donations. My plug. Money. And it goes to the children.
We are ClemsonCommunityCare.org, and we're on all the social media platforms as well. We have lots of opportunities and lots of different opportunities for volunteers. We have a large number of people that work in the pantry, preparing the bags for families and distributing. We have volunteer interviewers who work with our families and individuals. We have people who pick up donations. We have just lots of varied opportunities, some clerical. We have lots of different varied opportunities for volunteers, and that's really how we operate, is with our volunteers.
Well, guys, Karen, Adrian, Stephanie, Justice, Chris, and Don, it has been an absolute pleasure to sit up here, to listen to you all, and to learn about your organizations and the impact you're making. I am so serious. I need to go back to my resume and do more within my community. You guys have inspired me and ignited something in me that I kind of left in the back burner. I have a background in nonprofit as well. I used to be a grants coordinator. You talk about those 21st century grants. I oversaw South Carolina, Georgia, and North Carolina for 2 years, very short 2 years, very short 2 years. So I take my hat off, and I know that it all goes back to that mission. I was a grants coordinator for an organization called Wings for Kids, where we taught SEL learning skills to Title I schools in APS in Fulton County in Georgia, Atlanta Public Schools in Fulton County. Love the children. We talk about those metrics. We talk about the impact. We talk about how those parents come in gleaming, wanting to be a part of what their children are doing. So thank you for you all doing the work. I pray that all of the funding you desire comes. It will come. You guys are doing the work. We talk about God prevailing. He always does. Stay encouraged. And thank you all for being a part of the pilot of NPO Stories Lab series presented by Community Foundation of Greater Clemson. It's been a pleasure, guys.